The Asian American accent, its origins, and its implications on how we can break the bamboo ceiling. All that and more, tonight on The Gabe Guo Show. Woo! Alright, take off the teleportation glasses. Man, don't you just love that theme music? Anyways, welcome back to The Gabe Guo Show. I'm your host, Gabe Guo, and tonight, we are going to be talking about the Asian American accent. Asian Americans are the fastest growing ethnic group in the USA. Yet, due to their newcomer status in this country, many aspects of their culture are largely underexplored, such as the Asian American accent. For those of you who are unfamiliar with it, it sounds something like this.
I just always thought that was such a weird concept, staycation, where you get a hotel in the same city that you live in.
Yeah.
However, I note that the article of impeachment does reference Trump's phone call with the Georgia Secretary of State, where he asked him to find 11,780 votes.
The fact that that people are actually even watching it is beyond me.
Alright, so now that we have an idea of what the Asian American accent sounds like, let's talk about some of its characteristics. So, the first one that I'd like to note is upward inflection, as observed in the research paper by David B. Hanna, who is currently a professor at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine. So what is upward inflection? Upward inflection is when people end their sentences going up in pitch instead of going down in pitch. Let me do an example. Hello, I'm Gabe Guo, and I'm a CS major at Columbia University. That was upward inflection. Now for downward inflection. Hello, I'm Gabe Guo, and I'm a CS major at Columbia University. So, now that we know the difference between upward and downward inflection, let's take another listen at those clips.
Yeah, they wanted me for it, and I met, the producers and the director for it, but then my schedule didn't work because of my TV show Fresh Off the Boat, which I love being on, so I was like, all right.
Trump's phone call with the Georgia Secretary of State, where he asked him to find 11,780 votes. And these new articles are certainly highly disturbing.
The fact that that people are actually even watching it is beyond me.
Alright, so by now you might be asking, why do Asian Americans have upward inflection when they talk? Very good question. So basically, the reason for this is that many Asian languages, such as Mandarin Chinese, Thai, Vietnamese, are tonal languages, which means that the pronunciation of words depends on the pitch with which one says them. So for instance, in Chinese they have something called the four tones, which I will not do right now because I will probably butcher them, but I'll play you a clip.
Ah, 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 ah.
So basically, the implication of this is that when people speak their native Asian languages, they will often end their sentences with upward inflection, because that's how a lot of words at ends of sentences happen to be pronounced. And even when they move to English, they will still take this habit with them. And you know what? They'll pass it on to their American-born kids, who may never speak the homeland language, but nevertheless will use upward inflection. Alright, so another common feature of the Asian American accent is the way that we will pronounce certain groups of phonemes. So one group of phonemes that is of particular note to me is the versus duh. Oftentimes, Asian Americans will say the as duh.
What they do show,
I think about those kind of things.
Something like that.
us Asian Americans often pronounce the and I sounds very similarly.
And there's something deeply wrong.
I just put it through my legs and...
Increasingly desperate when his attempts to overturn the election failed.
Yet another group of phonemes that Asian Americans pronounce similarly, which is ah, and ah.
Hi, I'm Congresswoman-elect Young Kim.
Asian Americans will often drop the t, k, d, and g phonemes from the ends of words.
But a part of me at first was just like,
The Georgia Secretary of State, where you asked him to find 11,780 votes.
Alright, so the reason for these pronunciations of these phonemes among Asian Americans is basically because many Asian languages simply do not have such phonemes. For instance, in Mandarin Chinese, there is no such thing as the sound, and there isn't really a precise sound for and I, even though there is something close. So at this point, I'd like to talk about the implications of the Asian American accent on the bamboo ceiling. Now, in my opinion, the way that we pronounce certain phonemes isn't actually that relevant, because everybody pronounces their words just a bit differently. However, the relevant part is upward inflection. Why is that? You see, by asking that question, I actually just answered that question. Upward inflection is the same inflection that we use when asking questions in English. So when I say, "Hello, I'm Gabe Guo, and I'm a CS major at Columbia University," even though that was a definitive fact-based statement, it sounded kind of like I was asking a question, and I sounded unsure. Now, in corporate America, when Asian Americans talk with upward inflection, they get passed over for promotions, because the upward inflection makes them sound unsure, indecisive, not assertive, not having leadership potential. Now, is this unfair? Of course it is. But it's the way it is. It's ingrained in people's subconscious biases. But don't take this as gloomy news, because it's actually not gloomy news. Why not? You see, we Asian Americans can work to make sure that we talk with downward, not upward inflection. We can work to make sure that we sound decisive and assertive, like leaders. And everybody, no matter what racial or ethnic background you're from, can become aware of these subconscious perceptions and make sure that they do not negatively affect the way that we treat our Asian American citizens. Now, I know that breaking the bamboo ceiling is a tall order, and that this is far from the only factor that contributes to the bamboo ceiling. But it's a good first step. And I know that united, we will break the bamboo ceiling. Alright, so this has been the Gabe Guo Show. To recap, in this episode, we talked about the Asian American accent, its origins, and how we can use this knowledge to break the bamboo ceiling. Thank you for watching, and if you just can't get enough of me, be sure to hit that subscribe button and visit GabeGuo.com. Until next time.